The knitting mojo has returned. Huzzah! Hello my lovelies, welcome to my little cottage by the sea, the place where I love to stitch and craft my way to a vintage inspired and sustainable lifestyle. It's been an eon since I did any knitting natter. I'm celebrating the return of my knitting mojo. I'm going to be sharing some of my knitting goodness here. I've got my basket filled with my current knitting project. I also have a brand new knitting pattern which I'm really excited to share with you. So first off, let's talk socks. Now way back I shared a free sock pattern and some lovely wool that I bought in Hop Stitch and a Jumper in Tenterden, which is a lovely haberdasher's wool fabric shop, and I have finished my socks. I actually have a pair of socks and I'm not incredibly impressed with my socks. I enjoyed-ish knitting them. They weren't the most fun that I've had. I definitely enjoyed knitting on little round circular needles more than the double pointed. I could sort of get the hang of it more. And I have knitted them. Slight issue in that I seem to have made them slightly different lengths here. And I enjoyed all of this turning the heel, and it sort of all made sense to me. I suspect that they're ever so slightly different lengths there. They do fit, but the main boo-boo is the binding off at the toe. So I watched loads of tutorials about the sort of, is it the Kitchener stitch or the sort of that bind off, and you go around all of them, and basically I thought I was doing that, but really all I've ended up doing is pulling the thread through the stitches, which you can sort of, oh, don't know, probably not going to be able to see, but instead of sort of doing this really lovely bind off, I've like just pulled the stitches through and then fastened it, and then sort of realised that that wasn't what I was supposed to be doing, but I only realised after I'd done the second sock. Love this colour, and my aim is to wear these with my silver clogs of power, which you may remember from a video last year. And I'm not sure what to do with this now, because I feel like the toe isn't very strong and that it's just going to break. I've got plenty of wool left, so I don't know whether to just try and undo it, and even if it unravels a little bit, knit it up and master this Kitchener stitch. So that's the sort of where I'm at with those. So I don't know if socks are going to be a thing for me. I'm not sure that I enjoyed them massively. I do feel like I need to master this, and maybe mastering that will make me feel more positive about socks. Still on socks, I gave that same pattern to my kiddo, who you may remember knitted me that wonderful warm cozy jumper at Christmas, which I shared, and many of you sent really lovely comments about it, which I relate to Marty, my child, adult child, kiddo, my progeny, my spawn. And they basically have really taken to knitting massively, ever so good at it. And they knitted me a pair of lovely socks in this really gorgeous stripy, self-striping wool. I'm not sure which wool it is, and covered in some cat hair. My kiddo's got a white Persian, so both of us are always covered in white fluff. And they're just really, really gorgeous. So I'm gonna just link my kiddo's Instagram either fly below, and if you want to go along and give them a little bit of support, that would be really lovely, because they're sort of really going on their crafting adventures and they seem to be a bit of a chip off the old block and are working on a few little patterns and things that they're gonna put out into the wild. So if you feel inclined and would like to support my child, then I would be most grateful. So next up is the thing I'm so excited about. I love knitting and sewing little things, little palette cleansers, and they sort of keep your creative juices flowing when you don't have much time to embark on bigger projects. But I have loved this headband, pom-pom headband that Dita Pompadour wears. The original is a sewn version by the brand Hood, which I absolutely love them. I think everything they do is wonderful. So I wanted to create something along those lines, but knitted. So I have come up with the Dita Pompadour, which is a knitted headband, knitted in moss stitch, and you add pom-poms and you put it on and you feel amazing. So here is the Dita Pompadour pattern, which is a PDF, which you can buy and download from Tyrolean.co.uk. Here is the pattern with my little drawings of the pompadour, and you can actually do this so that you don't have the pom-poms on there, but really my thinking is, why would you not want humongous pom-poms sitting atop your noggin really through these cold and chilly days? So I knitted this one in Rico Essential Soft Merino, and it's an Aran weight wool. So this is designed for Aran weight, and it's perfect for beginners. Actually, it's really simple to knit and then construct. You could probably knit this slowly over a couple of sessions of watching Poirot. And this one is just in there like ivory, but then I'm also knitted and am yet to sew together this one also in the Rico, and this is Elder, which is this really beautiful sort of antique rose colour. And then I've got these ivory pom-poms to sew onto here. And these are the ones that I like. These are Trimet's faux fur pom-pom, and they come in 2 sizes. So you could actually use the smaller. But as I said, you can just leave the pom-poms off completely. Just as a little experiment, I had some Aran left over just in my stash, and I don't actually know where this is from, and I've actually just tied the sort of knot part in a bow. So you kind of get to this stage, fold that under, and then put your pom-pom on. That's how you construct it. But I left it in a bow just to sort of see what it would look like. This Aran is actually a little bit denser. The tension isn't the same on this, but I wanted to just experiment to see what difference that would actually make. It's a bit difficult seeing the black on the black, but it looks quite good, I think, even with the bow. So you've got 3 options there actually. And what I like about the Rico one is that it's got quite a lot of elasticity, so you get a lot of buoying, technical term, and that then fits around your head comfortably, whereas this one is less stretchy, so it's a bit tighter on the head. And I don't know about you, but I really hate it when I've got something that just makes my head ache because it's a bit tight. This one needs it's pushing hair up, so might need to put a couple of little clips in it. But that is my Dita Pompadour, and I know I'm just going to be knitting loads and loads and loads of these. Those are my Dita Pompadours so far, and you can go and grab the pattern should you wish to at all. There's no pressure. It's always really lovely to be supported by you, and I just love to share the things that I really want to wear. I don't do collections, as you probably noticed. I don't work in that way. I just have something that I love and I put it out so that other people who might enjoy it can enjoy it too. Whilst we're messing up the hair do, that isn't really a hairdo, it's just a hair happened. I've actually got a finished object here, which may look a bit strange to you, but this is a free pattern and it's a vintage coif, which I hope I'm saying correctly, but it's like a little sort of mini bonnet that you put on. I haven't actually blocked this at all, but you put it on and do it up like so. And I just wanted to try it to see what it actually looked like. I will link anything relevant in the show notes as ever. So not quite sitting right because it does need to be blocked, but this is my vintage coif. I bought the wool on sale and it's Stylecraft Softy Chunky, so you knit this in the chunky. And I've got my little, this is my little knitting book, so I'm all about notebooks and you know, having things that I can document things in. I'm obsessed. So I've written out the recipe for this, but I'll link the free pattern in the show notes, obviously. And really enjoyed this. It only took an episode of Poirot to knit. That is my new knitting gauge now, episodes of Poirot or Marple. I really like it. I think I might end up knitting a couple more of those for maybe next winter, because it was a really satisfying, easy knit, but it had the right level of challenge because I'd never knitted anything like that. And sometimes just simple things that are challenging are just all one can manage. So I'm in the process of finishing off another one of these vests. So I've got the round neck version here, and I'm currently knitting the V-neck version, which is still on the needles, but you can see here, we can get the general idea, literally flinging knitting gubbins everywhere. So this will go like thusly. This is homespun prism double knitting in the shade Moorland. In a recent video where I talk about some things that I want to sew, to make, knit as well in 2025, I showed you this scarf, and I've got some fabrics that sort of go with this scarf. And actually, before I'd really intended this, I'd bought this wool and had started knitting. So I have finished the back, and look how pretty it all looks. And I had had this scarf in mind, I think, because I bought this colourway, which is an unusual colourway for me. Generally, I do stick to black and pink and cream colours, but I just wanted to expand a little bit. But anyway, this was before I realised that. I'd obviously just done this all naturally by instinct. And so that is gonna look really, really lovely with those clothes that I'm gonna be making. So a whole outfit there, and I've just got a little bit of that to do, sew it together, do the armbands. And I am very, very lazy when it comes to blocking things, but I really feel like I need to block that properly and actually take the time to block things and make them look really finished and beautiful. So in my Tea with Tara talk that I do every 13th of the month over on Patreon, Tara Stitch Coven, I do a sort of informal fashion history, culture, film lecture, and it can be anything to do with the topic that we're looking at. This month we've been looking at that tale as old as time, Beauty and the Beast. So my talk was all about the sort of ideas that we have around appearance and what is beautiful and so on, and it was a really interesting talk, I thought so anyway. Hopefully patrons agree. And one of my lovely patrons said in that video, because I was really cold in the dining room down here, and I'd just popped this cardigan over my shoulders, and it's a really, really old cardigan that I knitted years ago. It's in some very cheap synthetic wool, and it's black with a silver sparkle in it, which is absolutely lovely. I knitted it such a long time ago now that I don't know where that pattern was. I mean, I'm talking like 20 something years ago. I've never even put buttons on it, but it's that bog standard, almost like school cardigan pattern, but for grown-ups, and you can get them with like the man, the woman and the kids, you know, because obviously every family situation is that binary. I had a pink one as well, but that has gone wherever cardigans go to retire themselves. And it just got me thinking, my lovely patron said, oh, is that a cardigan or is it a cape? And I suddenly started thinking, a knitted cape. When these ideas spark me, I really just become sort of engrossed in the notion. And I saw on Instagram a thing for Knitting magazine, and in here there is indeed a knitted cape, and it's knit, I think, in double knit. I went and bought it because I wanted the pattern. I'm probably gonna photocopy that pattern for myself and then give the magazine to my kiddo, who is now knitter extraordinaire, surpassing everything I do, to be honest. And this one's got 21 classic knits, timeless style with a hint of vintage. So there are actually a few nice things in here, but that cape was something that I was really taken with, because actually knitted up and just worn over another jumper or a few layers would keep me nice and cozy, but also keeps your arms freer to be able to pattern cut and film, because all the pattern cutting tutorials and so on that I do on Patreon are all bird's eye. So I thought that that might be quite a useful garment, but also glamorous depending on what you knit it in. They suggest Yarnsmith's Merino double knit, which is a wool silk, merino wool and silk, I think. Very, very lustrous and lush. So that is just one that's on my radar, something that I'm thinking about considering. But lots of lovely things in that magazine if you're in need of a bit of inspiration. So in a little short that I put up a few weeks ago, I got a delivery from Wool Warehouse of wool that I wanted to knit this pattern in, which isn't a vintage pattern. It's Sirdar 4-ply 7309, but it looks really, really vintagey. So I've just made a start knitting that, which doesn't look all that exciting, but as I said a way back, I'm sure I've said this, I've either said it to myself or to Ghost or to you, I really want to make sure that the stuff that I'm working on, whether it's knitting or sewing, is stuff that's gonna really find a loved place in my wardrobe, because I'm a bit fed up with knitting anyway. Where I was last year, I kind of lost my mojo. I just could not get anything right, hence the socks, toes of my socks, hence that. And it's just so deflating, and also a waste of time and a waste of money, which I don't have to be, you know, wasting in that way. I don't want to feel like I'm living a wasteful life. So I really want to be making stuff that has really got that well-earned place in my wardrobe, but without being bland or boring, without doing that minimalist, I've only got 20 things in my wardrobe, and one's a trench coat and one's a stripy Breton top, and then there's a beret. I have all of those items, so no shade, but you know, I like all the other kerfuffly stuff, another technical term. Anyway, I've only just started on the ribbed waistband for that, and I'm just going to be working on that steadily. I don't have any particular cut-off points or deadlines for these, but I do find that if I wake up a little bit earlier with my morning cup of tea, then I just do a little bit of knitting, and that just gets me into a good state of mind for the day. And I seem to make quite steady progress knitting that way. So start the day with a bit of knitting, end the day with a bit of knitting. Some mornings actually I start the day with some reading, and I always end the day with reading. So I'm knitting that in Drops Nord, which is a really lovely wool. It feels really lovely. It feels much more expensive than it is. It is a value knit. I don't know how the wool fares after numerous washes, but maybe you can tell me. But I feel like this, even in with this colour, sort of bringing in these kind of more earthy tones into my really quite saturated colours, my quite monochromatic wardrobe on the whole. This outfit here is quite a departure for me, but it still sort of fits the general colour that I do tend to like, but I'm excited about trying out these new colours and excited about this pattern, which I just downloaded from Wool Warehouse. So I think that's really lovely, and those are quite nice actually, where they've got the contrasting bows and waistbands and things, so can have fun with this one. The last thing that I want to show you is something that I am actually really excited about, and I have actually nearly finished. So what I love to do at Christmas, when I just stop for the holiday, and quite often it's the only time of year that I actually really stop in one big chunk of time, so I have plenty of sort of space just to exhale, recalibrate. I always like to start a new project and try to knit as much of it as possible, and I think this project that I did actually was the reason why my knitting mojo came back with such a vengeance. So I've shown you this book before, Vintage Hollywood Knits, and I'm actually still knitting this one in a weird sort of bluey, duck egg blue sort of colour, which I'm not sure how I feel about that colour now, and I've had loads of issues with it, but that's for another episode. And I love the Tyrolean cardigans that you get, and there's a fabulous book by Knitting for Victory, I think, on it. But in there I read that the patterns don't come up in lots of sizes, and I didn't want to knit something that would give me too many hurdles, you know, I wanted some wins. So I saw this one, Claudette Colbert, how beautiful, and this book is actually by Bill Gibb, who's a fashion designer. So I didn't buy wool, I used wool that I already had in my stash, and this is a little bit bright, I will give you that, but this is where I am. So I've knitted all the bits, I've sewn in the sleeve of the cardigan, and I am about to sew up that side. I've got the other sleeve here, so it looks very sort of peculiar, but it works, it does go in, and it is very much based off of those vintage proportions. And that's one of the things that is really, it really annoys me when I knit something and then it's not tight and fitted, which I just don't really like, those oversized pieces, because I really like that vintage shape and feel. Even if something isn't vintage, I still want it to sort of give that feel, whether it looks like it or it just feels like it. For me, I've always been drawn to vintagey things. So this is really, really bright, and I can't remember what size I knitted. Oh, I knitted the 4th size, so for a 36-inch bust, and the actual measurements sort of gives you in inches and then actual measurements in centimeters, which is like not helpful, but I just wanted something that would be tight, you know, to do that negative ease thing. This wool is just left over from when I used to do sets for my berets, so this is called Shocking. It's coming up more raspberry, it's actually more vibrant pink, more Shocking Schiaparelli pink, which is why I wanted it. And then of course there's the border to do, which is just a crochet border with little crochet loops, button loops, and then you embroider things on it. So I don't actually know what colour to do the edging in. I think I'm probably going to do cream, do it quite basic. It would be cream or black, I suppose, and then I'm gonna embroider things on it. So one of the things that I would say about this pattern is, and I'm amazed about this, I sort of had to go with my instinct rather than what was written in the pattern. I don't know if it was a sort of an editing issue, a technical editing issue, or it was me, because my inability to actually follow certain knitting instructions seems profoundly strong. But I somehow got to it anyway, it just sort of worked it out. And the issue was that you start this sort of basket weave, whatever this is called. So you do a certain number of rows with like a knit and then a garter, a stocking garter, then you swap. So you get this kind of lattice basket weave effect, which is really lovely. It was really satisfying to do, really enjoyed it. But when I was following these instructions, you've got your left side and your right side, but if I followed the instructions for one of them, it just didn't sort of come out right. I did have to frog back one of the sides, and then I just kind of followed the other side and reversed it in my head, so I didn't follow the instructions. Don't know if that makes sense, and I also don't know if it was just me reading the book, misreading it, but basically I'm still really thrilled with it, and the fact that it is a very vintagey piece, and I love it so much that I probably will buy a cream wool and do a cream one in this, because this I started on Christmas Eve and I'd knitted the back by the end of Boxing Day, so it went really quickly, and I've just sort of put it down and not finished it because I'm doing some work on my textile art. I've got an exhibition that starts on the 28th of February, and also all the filming and resuming normal life. You know, you don't really have the opportunity to sit down and eat a million mince pies and knit a whole jumper, but I basically had got that knitted, all of the pieces knitted by the middle of January, and I was sewing it up at sort of the middle of January, and I've just kind of stopped. So that is there to finish and to embroider, and I am sure that at some point in the not too distant future you'll see these things finished. So I think you'll agree that my knitting mojo has really resumed at a furious pace, and I'm just really enjoying having that mindful moment with my knitting needles. And I hope that you've enjoyed having a little peek at the things that I'm knitting. I know not all of you are knitters, not all of you are sewers, but I really appreciate that you take the time to spend the time with me here in my little cottage by the sea. I'm so grateful for all your support and your many kindnesses. I shall see you soon, my lovelies. Till next time. Bye.